Hello, folks. You're very welcome along to the Red 78, a Munster podcast for Munster fans. My name is Ruairi O'Hagan. We have a lot to discuss on today's show. Munster's defeat to Leinster in the rain in Thomond Park, the mounting injury list for the Reds, and the trip to Galway to come on New Year's Day. And who better to discuss it than with Munster legends Alan Quinlan and Fiona Hayes. Guys, how are you? How was your Christmas, Fiona?
Good, great Christmas. Was up in Thomond for the old derby, so was disappointed with that, and probably haven't recovered from my one too many jars at that as well. But no, good to relax.
Vinny, how'd you get on?
Oh, grand, yeah, very, very nice and relaxing and quiet. And Liverpool did well. Anyway, we say nothing about the other results.
That's because they overwatered the pitch, yeah.
Yeah, so obviously, now it's over. Now it was nice. It was very relaxing.
It's all you want for Christmas. It wasn't the Christmas that Munster wanted, losing to Leinster. We've got loads of comments coming in about the game. Fiona, they're not really critical of Munster, I suppose, given the injury list that we have at the moment, and people are still seeing the positives in Munster's performance.
Yeah, I was quite surprised as well. I thought, especially after the couple of the draw and the loss, I thought this was the game that would have tipped people a little bit. But look, it's the injury front. I think people are really focusing on, and it's the performance as well. They've put in some good performances. I'll read out a couple that we have here. Obviously, can't get to everyone, but Adrian Harrington said credit to the current Munster squad. They are closing the gap as the derbies were way too lopsided, albeit with all the injuries and factoring the bench Leinster can bring on, Munster will feel this is another one that got away. Too many bad decisions and sloppy mistakes. Oisin Short came in with Clark deserves massive credit. Zebo could be dangerous with a run of form. Munster need to rest Crowley. He looks absolutely exhausted and frustrated. Would like to see Oki and O'Connell called up. Lack of on-field leadership at the moment. This one, you're going to love this one, Quinny. Jer Mallon says, bring your boots, Alan. You'll probably be playing against the Crusaders at this rate. And look, Tom Lonergan said, atrocious conditions and possibly the worst game ever at Thomond Park. Hope Dogbo injury is not too serious. The less said about Casey, the better acting the bleep. We need Peter O'Mahony, Byrne and Klein back ASAP. We have to make use of Snyman while he's around, and Connacht will definitely be up for it. And I thought Dahi came in with a couple of positives. Encouraging start by Jaeger. He gave Porter problems. Zebo, Nankivil, Dagbar Hearn put in solid shifts, and well done Clark against the weather and a huge Leinster pack. He stood up and fought, and negative, so many injuries, central contract issues as discussed, and he has said Coombs' form at the minute as well.
All right, plenty to discuss there and a breakdown. First of all, Quinny, you look fit. Do you fancy a run out in Parky Queeve?
Oh, it'd be nice, yeah. I'd the mind it certainly be up for it, but I don't think the rest of my body would react as quickly as it would need to. But yeah, it's I think the general consensus from people who sent in messages, because we've got to be careful here. We've got to analyze as best we can, but I think it's been a common theme in the last few weeks. Obviously, it's not all down to injuries, of course, but the injuries have really hampered this team, and that's the general consensus from everybody that there's a lot of quality players missing, and it's causing issues around the set piece and the power game and the physicality, and that's been pretty telling. I think the way Munster finished games probably has not been great either. They've lost control. The word leadership is mentioned a good bit in the tweets in the last few weeks from people watching. I suppose that leadership comes with experience, quality players, internationals that you're missing. So it's a tough learning curve for these players at the moment, and they're in a tough moment. They've got to really dig in because, I know we'll talk about it. The trip to the sports ground on Monday is going to be a very, very tricky one. I know Connacht have a few injuries themselves, but I think just in the key positions and what happened on Tuesday night in Thomond Park, it's hard to believe that you lose your hooker, a loose head prop, a second row and a centre, and they potentially could be out for a long period of time again. It's really difficult for them. But I think we can't get away from the fact that there's inaccuracies, particularly around the set piece and the line-out. And I know we get into the match in a minute. There's certain times in the game that Munster need to win the line-out, lock out the scrum, and just be really clinical in those important pressure moments, particularly when you're attacking the opposition. And Leinster are a superb side, and I think Fiona mentioned it there, and some of the tweeters did as well. The impact off the bench, and I just don't think Munster have enough depth in certain areas, even if everybody was fit and available.
Right.
Particularly to, I think if you get to a point where Munster had everybody available, you can rotate players, you can keep them fresh. There's a number of players are having to play week on week for the last 2 months. And I just think it's telling. And but look, there's nothing they can do. They've just got to keep working hard. You can't just suddenly invent players that are not there. Younger players probably have to come in for the squad in Galway as well. And they're in a tough place at the moment. They've lost. That's 4 games they've lost now in the league. No, 3 games they've lost. Sorry, 2 to Leinster and away to Ulster, and they've a draw in there as well. So it's difficult. I think if they can get through this period and get something in Galway, Europe is a different kettle of fish. I think it might be a step too far, particularly with players that are missing now. I think Munster have a decent run of fixtures then come the end of January in the URC. So at this stage, it was looking so promising at the start of the season with this really good start. We may be looking at a stage now where we're kind of hoping to get into that 7th, 6th, 7th, 8th position again in the league come May. So we'll see, but no point in looking too far ahead. I think they have a crisis at the moment with all the players that are missing.
Fiona, you were in Thomond Park in the stand, or in the terraces, I should say, getting rained on. It looked abysmal on TV. Now, I know conditions are the same for both
She
teams.
didn't stay there too long, Rory.
I wasn't going to say that, Quinny.
I went into your old haunt in the Shannon Bar to see your face hanging on the wall, Quinny. That was all.
Very good, very good. Yeah, did you go back out though? Conditions were horrendous as well.
They were, yeah.
We probably should say as well, Rory, and Fiona, you know this. There was a time where the wind and the rain would suit some of the teams I played on, but not this team. And I think some people are saying there's no plan B. There's no meaning, we can't stick the ball up the jumper and be really dominant in that situation, forward dominance, because there's a power issue and there's a size issue, and there's with some of the big players and the physical players that Munster are missing. So the weather was horrendous. God, there was people, you could see people shaking in the ground. The players were shaking at times, particularly the wingers who weren't getting much of the ball, but it was horrendous.
Was it that bad up there, Fiona?
Yeah, it was, to be honest with you. There was a couple, even you could see it with a couple of the box kicks, Rory. I think Casey a couple of times just before he got the yellow card, he kicked out in the full. There was another box kick that nearly went behind him, and it's when you see the kick and when the ball goes up in the air, I think you really understand the impact of the wind and what it's like. And I even saw, I think, every stoppage in play, Andy Brace was putting his 2 hands underneath his armpits. It was just so cold. But look, I have to say I agree with Quinny. That's what a lot of the fans were saying after the game as well, that I was chatting to about the Munster of old, getting over that gain line, changing how we play. When you're looking at attacking rugby and you love what you see and you talk about that, it's very hard to be able to have the same type of players that are just big brutes that are getting over the gain line. So I understand the way the game has changed, but I suppose it was just the errors that, with the conditions being not narrowing things, a couple of knocked on balls that were in attacking moments for Munster, but it was just one of those games. It could have gone either way, and that's what's so frustrating, because they shift. It was only when I watched the game back, Rory, I was saying to you there that the shift Munster put in defensively at times was absolutely outstanding. I mean, after Casey's yellow card, Leinster the kick down the line, and the way Munster defended that maul was superb on 32 minutes. They were able to get the turnover scrum, then able to get out, off the pitch from that Crowley. It's just, I suppose it's that rub of the green, and that's what's frustrating things. There was a couple of penalties I thought they could have got at scrum time. They didn't. You'll have that in every game, but it just doesn't seem to be happening for Munster luck-wise, especially with the injuries, as we said.
Yeah, and I suppose, Quinny, there's further line-out issues for Munster again on the night, which has been a theme of their season so far. How much of that can you put down, I suppose, to the weather on Tuesday night?
Well, I think if you analyze the game and look back as a player, I think there'll be certain things in every match there is that you can do better. I think if we go back to the very start of the game, for the first kickoff, Jack O'Donoghue runs the ball back. I think the reaction time to get there, his body position, his fight on the with taking the ball into contact. Diarmuid Byrne then flops down and gives away a penalty. I think Max Deegan takes the legs of Diarmuid Byrne, which in hindsight, or with a replay, you can see that stuff. It's difficult for the referee to see that. It looks like he just flops down, but in fact, Max Deegan took his legs out from under him. But I just thought that's a sloppy start. You're running in field. I think it's just, they should be more accurate there. They should be better there. You should be getting into contact, clear your lines well. Don't give them an early kick. Harry Byrne kicks it over the bar 3-0 on a night that's going to be really difficult to get scores. The second penalty, it's a wide loopy pass to Jack O'Donoghue again with horrendous wind. You can even see the ball moving in the air. Leinster on a 3-point start with loads of defenders in front, charging off the line. They win the collision way behind the gain line and they counter up, and it's penalty number 2. So I think those 2 penalties can be avoided. And there's small little things in a game that Munster will look at that and they need to be better. Craig Casey should be box kicking that ball. And I know he had 2 or 3. It's on the camera side, the opposite side from where the players come out around the 10-yard line. He had 2 or 3 box kicks there. It took him a while to get used to the wind, which is really difficult, to be fair, in his defence. Because you kick a normal box kick and it's nearly coming back on top of you. You nearly have to exaggerate the distance and kick it like as if you're kicking it 20 yards further than you normally would. And then he got that right with a couple of them. But I think that passing it back to Jack O'Donoghue there was a little bit naive. Leinster were stormed through and they counter-rucked and got the second penalty. What Fiona's saying about the defence when Craig Casey, I think we have to talk and say, look, what Craig Casey did was absolutely stupid. He'll know that himself. He picks Jordan Larmour up. It's the ball, they're gone like 2 seconds before he drops him on the ground. He's very, very lucky there. And it was a yellow card and a penalty. It's stupid. He'll know that himself. Okay. I know all about stupid stuff on a rugby field, so you have to mention it. You have to just be really careful there.
That could have been red as well, couldn't it?
Yeah.
It could have been. And I just don't think there's a need for it because the ball is gone ages. But anyway, Munster defended superbly well in that passage of play because they stopped them once, then they got another penalty and they stopped them a second time. And I thought that's the kind of stuff that shows that they're quite united and they're working incredibly hard and they're trying to fix issues that were defensive mauls. If we go back to Glasgow a number of weeks ago, and beyond the try they scored at the end of the game. So I think Leinster went to the corner there with a view to scoring, and I think you felt there was an inevitability about that they were going to score. So that was a big moment for them. They defended well. They go in the second half, then when they have opportunities, they start well, they get a penalty, make it 6-3, and you think you're starting to get a feeling that there's something here for Munster, but you've 3 lineouts on the trot that you lose, and you throw them the 3 lineouts to the front. I think again, Owen Clark comes into the game incredibly early, did really well. You're now down Edwin Adogbo. You've no Peter O'Mahony in there. You've no Ty Byrne in there. You've no John Klein in there. You've no R.G. Snyman in there. You've no Finian Wycherley in there. So you've a huge number of the second rows gone. Gavin Coombs, as we said, has been playing in the second row for the last couple of weeks, doing a really good job there. you've Thomas Ahern, who's still very relatively inexperienced, and he seems to be the only line-out option at this moment.
Yeah.
And they try and go to the front. I think he went to the front with Coombs at one stage. Ryan Baird, I think, stole the 3 lineouts or got a hand in 3 lineouts. And you just sense then that that's the game really, because if Munster win particularly the one that was deep in the Leinster 22, it was only 5 or 6 yards out. Win that one, stay there, get them all rumbling there. You know, you never know. You get over, one try wins this game, I think. And I also thought the decision to kick when Munster got a penalty 5 yards out, Jack Crowley to kick, was probably the wrong decision there with the wind. You know, when you're that close to the line, I think tap and go. That's a tap and go job. Have a crack, keep going. You may get another penalty out of it. You may get one closer to the post. But again, look, if he kicks the penalty and the shot clock went, I don't know if they would have even allowed it because it went over the time when Jack Crowley kicked there. But going back to the original question, sorry, the lineouts, you're missing so many people there, and you have an inexperienced hooker, an inexperienced lineout caller, and you're up against a team who are very, very good defensively. You have to tip your hat to Ryan Baird. That power and that quality is on from Leinster, that depth that they have. But those three lineouts are really, really crucial. You contrast that to a lineout near the end where Leinster had a lineout in the Munster 22 on the opposite side of where the players come out, and they throw to the tail and win it comfortably. They build it in field and get the winning penalty. And that kind of just told me that, number one, confidence, player personnel, accuracy, all that kind of stuff. Sheehan goes to the tail in those conditions and wins it clean. They win it cleanly. So, you know, again, it'd be wrong to be critical of these players, because I think their effort levels, their commitment, their desire, you know, it's really difficult for them at the moment. And they're coming up against good sides as well. It's not, you know, Leinster, one of the best sides in Europe, and we saw what they did in La Rochelle against the current champions in wet conditions. They have that power and that ballast, and you know, very small margins in this game. I think it was there for Munster. So, but like we've said it for the last couple of weeks, haven't we? The line out is an area that one line out to me is too many to lose in a game.
Yeah, and I will say on that as well, Quinny, if you notice those couple of lineouts, there was a little bit of movement in it, and it's just with the changes. Everything is off. You can see it. The lift is slower. The throw was in a bit quicker because they're used to whatever the jumper's getting in. So it's those tiny little tweaks that aren't happening when there's injuries or when the changes comes in. It just looks a lot more lethargic. So you would be wondering, is there a case for, now you probably disagree with me, obviously it's high level rugby, but just if you're going at the front, just getting in and getting it done nice and quick.
Yeah, possibly. I think you know, it's easier said than done, Fiona, because I think all opposition teams now feel that there's a vulnerability there, and you see a Dogbo going off the field. You don't see Peter O'Mahony, Klein, Finian Wycherley, Snyman, these guys who are, you know, really big players. And the options then are limited in the lineout, so you can pressurize those two spaces maybe with your two pods.
Yeah.
And then look, Leinster probably thinking, well, Owen Clark, Munster not going to call this to the tail of the line out here, so they can bunch up there as well, but maybe shorten the line out. But then when you have a 5 yard line out and you want to try and get them all going, you know, it's the obvious thing is, win it. And a lot of people say win it, simply just win it at the front. But when you've someone so athletic and good like Ryan Baird, and they're going to spring him up
Joe
there,
McCarthy,
it's difficult. So look, I think the opposition know that there's a bit of inexperience there and maybe a little bit of control, but it's easier said than done. Look, I think the reality is there's the set piece and the lineouts are costing Munster moments in the last few weeks, and they're working hard at it, I'm sure. But you know, you need that bit of experience and quality there to, you know, have 2 or 3 options right across your lineout, and then have the confidence to execute and throw right to the tail, like Leinster did at the end of the game. You know, they win it cleanly at the end of the game at the tail of the lineout. So, there's no quick fix solution here. They've just got to try and find a way maybe of doing things a little bit quicker, as you said.